makes most women start a business? Is it passion, money, or freedom? Welcome to Female Founders, the podcast that takes you behind the scene with women who are founders and CEOs to help you start and scale a successful business of your own. I am your host, Nagelia de Ravin. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Female Founders. In this episode, we are going to have a conversation with Kylie Van Luyn. She is a human services, workforce development consultant, business growth coach, and founder of Elevated Coaching and Consultant. She is furthering leadership development to support individuals and organizations navigate transformation. Good morning, Kylie. Oh my goodness, you are a consultant and coach who is helping businesses and individuals reach their full potential, which is something I stand behind 100%. And I can't wait to learn more about your company and all the things that you are doing to support other businesses. So, from a degree in human resources to coaching, what led you to that career change?
I've worked in human services and nonprofit for the last 13 years in senior leadership and executive roles. And my purpose has always been to support the most disadvantaged in the society and community. So I've done a lot of work with people with disability, people from refugee background, people that have newly arrived to Australia. And then recently we expanded into the US as well. So the way that our business works is we do consulting for nonprofits who may need interim executive support with their strategic planning or their diversity, equity, inclusion and belonging commitments and policies. And then on the flip side, to ensure that that inclusion really happens genuinely in the organisations that recruit people from marginalised backgrounds. We work with large corporates to, I guess, educate them and take them on that journey of diversity, equity and inclusion as well.
So you focus more into businesses, not individuals themselves.
We do individual coaching as well. So we do so we've got three streams to the business. We have the consulting side, which does what I just described. Then we have the coaching side, which works really closely one-on-one with individuals. It could be career coaching for new mums that want to go back into the workforce, or like I said, people who have just arrived in Australia or the US that have never had a job in that country before. But we also do a lot of leadership one-on-one coaching and also mindset coaching as well, which is really popular.
Wow, so you're doing it even if the person is from one country moving to another country.
Yeah.
That's different.
Yeah, because the workforce, there's workforce shortages globally at the moment that we're all experiencing that are quite similar. So here in Australia, we're finding that there's a huge workforce shortage in industries like hospitality, aged care is a big one, disability support, but also in the retail sector and construction as well, so traditional trades. They're the same what we're finding in the US as well and probably in the UK, but there are anomalies to workplace culture and things like that we help people understand, what it's like to work in Australia, what it's like to work in the States, and what they should expect as a new person entering into the workforce so that they feel included and that they belong much quicker.
I like that.
Yeah.
I can't believe no one else ever think of that. That's amazing. I never heard of that at all, from one country to another. And you are absolutely right, because if today from United States, I say I'm going to UK, it's a whole different culture. So I need to understand it, be able to, feel belong. I'm not lost. So you're right, having someone like yourself who can call a company like your company to help out, make a lot of sense, rather than just trying to figure it out and just being lost in general.
Yeah, that's right. It helps people settle. My husband, my daughter and myself are moving to the States next year. So we will experience that firsthand, being, I guess, not in our home country, so to speak. So you just want to help people feel like they belong and have that social inclusion as well, and make sure that they're participating in employment.
Let me use an example here. Let's say that I own a company in UK, and then I am bringing the company into the US. but I don't know the culture of United States very well. Can you help with something like that as well?
Yeah, I've just done that with my company. So that's something that I've got lived experience, if you like. Starting a new company in the United States was so different to when I started this company here in Sydney, Australia. So that's something that we'll be doing as well. Is not just for Australians moving to the US, but anybody looking to move either to probably Sydney or Australia, but also anyone wanting to move to the US. Like, what does that look like? Um, who do you talk to? How do you network differently in, say, the
Mm-hmm.
United States? It's been really a very different experience for me connecting and networking with professionals in the US as it was, here in Australia. A very different way of working.
Do you find the leadership is also different? The leadership
Yes.
style?
Yeah. Leadership styles are really different. I think as well, the focus on and commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging is really different as well. I mean, it's hard to compare Australia with the US because we are much smaller, as well.
Mm-hmm.
Not only the country, but as far as population. But they have, I guess, just the way that they recruit, the way they hire, the way they structure jobs and job descriptions. They're very specific in what they ask for an individual in a role, and it's very clear in America what you're going to be doing in your job. In Australia, you kind of jump in and do a bit of everything. Typically, you're
Hmm.
bit of a jack of all trades, and people have quite diverse skill sets here because of that reason. But then, when a lot of Australians find that when they go to the US, their roles are much narrower and much clearer, and there's many more resources, usually within, especially large companies, to help people do, I guess, what would be one or two jobs in Australia, typically, four or five in the US.
But do you find that, especially when you're helping individuals that's moving from Australia to United States, do you find it like for them it's a lot easier? Hey, I'm not gonna be left and right, but I'm gonna be just right.
Yes.
I'm doing one
Yeah.
thing.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, it's much clearer, and I think um, we've both worked in organisations. I'm sure you have. If you have a job description or a role within a company that's 3 pages long, and you're doing a bit of this and a bit of that and a bit of something else, it's really hard to do something really well and master something.
Mm-hmm.
I've spoke to a woman the other day who said to me, I don't feel I'm sort of spread so thinly in my job here in Australia that I don't feel like I'm doing anything particularly well. And so then people don't get that fulfillment from their job and that job satisfaction, which in the moment, in the environment that we are with the workforce shortages, I think it's really important for employers to focus on, um, you know, people being really fulfilled in their roles so that they can have that really good retention rate and not lose good staff.
Yes, I agree with that. Like you said, like when you're doing many things, you can't really be good at one. So it's good to focus on one thing and be good at it. And
Yeah.
with that, you can learn other things, but you have one thing that is your thing. Like I remember I was reading somewhere. It says that if you cook rice every day, you'll be the best at cooking rice. But if you cook in everything, then you know how to cook things, but you're not best at one thing because you just keep cooking, everything. So it's
That's right.
making a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So with your business moving to United States, are you still gonna be working with different countries, or is just gonna focus with people moving from other countries into the US?
Sky's the limit. I never say no to anything. We we say yes to everything, and then we figure out how to do it later if it's not something that we've really planned for. And that kind of happened with the Australian company. We had our mindset on a couple of things that we would do, and then people would come to us and ask, "Do you do recruitment for the nonprofit space?" And I said, "We do. Yeah, sure, we can do that because I've come from that sector, so I actually know the type of person and the types of roles that really work really well for nonprofits to be able to achieve the outcomes that they're looking for and that they need to achieve to function properly as well, especially they're very slim structures usually. Um, so no, I'd love to work with all different. I'm fascinated by human behaviour and different cultures
Sure.
and also different ways of working. How my experience here being an Australian and working remotely for now with people from the US and just how welcoming they've been So helpful and just absolutely lovely, but working really differently, and even how they respond to emails and just really unique small things has been fascinating to me. So I'd love to work with people from all different backgrounds. It's great. It's how you learn, right?
Yes, yes. And it's also exciting to know the different culture. And that's
Yeah.
something you actually do as well. So it's kind of like we all have that different thing that we do that make us feel different, but also we love it because it make us feel welcome. So be able to learn all these things is just awesome, I think, in my point of view. But you also do when you deal with diversity, how exactly do you help, let's say, the individual when it's come to diversity?
Uh, so before they move into employment, and I'll give you some examples from companies that we've worked with that are quite large here in Australia, that have a real corporate social responsibility or a diversity and inclusion a commitment to, for instance, people with a disability or people from refugee backgrounds. We work really closely with the company, but we also to make sure that the workplace is prepared. So if there's any workplace modifications that need to be made, if they're recruiting somebody who, for instance, has a physical disability, we work with them and link them to the right resources and tools and potentially government funding to support that. But we also work really closely with the individual, so that they're not just feeling like a number, and so that they understand things like workplace rights and responsibilities. Um, Anything that's going to help that individual not only to settle into the company, but also so that they can work really closely with their team members and their manager, and so that that employment placement is successful and it's sustainable employment and it's meaningful employment for that individual. So we do things like we do interview preparation. We help them with their resume. So if they don't have things like local work experience here in Australia, we suggest things like doing some training or volunteering, just to put something meaningful on their CV, and then we help prepare them for their interviews. We do a lot of coaching and mentoring along the way, and then once we find that placement or that employment vacancy, then we start talking to them as well. Even before that, actually, start talking to them about things like the Australian workplace culture. There's a lot of slang that we use in Australia, and I know now, speaking with a lot of Americans, that they say, "Oh, you're going to need to get to understand the slang here in the US," which I never thought they had slang, or colloquial language. So it's helping people understand, how the Australian workplace culture works, some of the things that they might find when they're reporting to a manager here, and giving them examples that a lot of the leaders and managers in Australia are probably, compared to other cultures and other countries, a little more relaxed. Um, you call your manager by their first name. It's not Sir or Mister or Ms. or Mrs. It's first name basis. Also, there's Friday drinks with your colleagues. Well, that might be something that someone from another culture could be quite polarizing to someone. To think, oh, I would never go out for Friday drinks with my boss. Um,
Yeah.
and also, not only there's the cultural lens, but with that comes people's religious beliefs and things like that. So helping the team understand, um, they need to be just aware of the language they use in the workplace, and that language matters, and that plays a big role in diversity and inclusion, but also a huge part of belonging for people that are new to the organisation as well.
Wow. So, what led you to say that? I know that you have over 13 years of experience working with organizations, but from before that, what led you to say, I'm going to get into that type of career, to say, I'm going to work within organizations and help them with um, helping executive, consultant? What was that moment that get you to that type of work?
To launch my company.
Exactly. Because it's you are working, we have 13 years of experience, you are
Mm.
working with organization, but what makes you feel like you want to make that switch?
Freedom. Yeah, I understood really clearly. I mean, I had such beautiful experiences as an employee, if you like, and as a leader. And I wanted a job where it combined all those beautiful parts, all those really enjoyable, meaningful moments for me. And leadership can be challenging, and there's no leader on this planet that says it's not a challenging job. and the parts of leadership that typically people enjoy are the coaching and the mentoring and helping their team members to move forward in their journey to success. And unfortunately, the reality of leadership is that you don't have the opportunity or the time often, because you're bombarded with other things, to spend as much time investment, I guess, on doing that part. And so, those of us that did really value that and you put the time into it, you end up completely exhausted because you're trying to do everything. And so I wanted to do more of that and more of, that real intensive mind shift type of coaching, helping people to really shift their mindset so that after we finish our coaching engagement, and I've got people that have been with me for 7 and 8 months now, that you see a significant improvement and their mindset has completely changed. And you can see that once you part ways, and I stay in contact with people for over 10, 12 years now, people that have reported to me, but you can see that they're really leading the lives that they want. So for me, it was, I wanted to move out of the grind, although having my own business has been more of a grind than any other job. But I wanted the freedom and just have that connection to my purpose, to be really honest.
And I feel like also you have a passion for helping people.
Yeah. Yeah. A big time. That comes from my mum. She was very philanthropic, beautiful lady, and she spent any spare moment that she had sort of baking cakes and doing fundraisers, for sick children in hospital here in Australia and people that were suffering cancer and stuff. So yeah, she was probably the reason that I moved into this space.
I think for the cake part, I would love her already. Me and her would be
Yeah.
BFF just for the cake.
Yeah. I miss her baking. I miss her baking.
Yeah, mom's bakings are usually like no one else can make it better.
That's it. You can follow the recipe and you go, it doesn't taste like hers.
No, doesn't.
No.
No, never. So you walk towards social justice, which is not a usual path. What was the motivation behind taking up that type of cause?
Wow, it was probably 5 years ago now. I took up I had a full-time role as a quite a senior leader in one of Australia's largest nonprofits, and a volunteer CEO role came up, and I thought, why not say yes and figure out how to do it later, that whole thing. And it was with an organisation that works in Afghanistan, helping girls
Hmm.
and young women to have access to books and education when typically they're excluded from receiving an education. And it dawned on me then, but also probably a couple of years prior, working very closely with new arrivals and people who have come to Australia as refugees, just how cruel the world is and how human rights are, not everybody is afforded their human rights, unfortunately. And it started, there was just a pit in my stomach. It started a real hunger to make a change, especially with the human rights for women and girls around the world, and particularly those young girls in Afghanistan as well. And so that's sort of where that came from. And previous roles I had experienced firsthand and observed how people with disability were also treated, not just in the workplace, but also in the community. And so that's where the passion, I guess, for social, I think it was always there, to be honest. I mean, it was probably, again, it came from my mother. She was very, very much always saying to my sister and I, she only had the two of us girls, always get an education. I want your lives to be better than mine. I want you to have options.
Hmm.
Don't ever put yourself in a situation where you have to rely on another human being. Give yourselves options that if you end up in a relationship where you're being treated poorly, make sure you've got the means to be able to exit that relationship swiftly. Um,
Ooh.
yeah, just have your own education. It's something that no one can ever take away from you, and it gives you a means to earn an income, which then in turn is, freedom. So I think that's where it comes from.
She was a very bright woman, I can tell you that.
Beautiful
She's
lady.
absolutely right. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
absolutely right on everything. Especially as women, we have to. Because in society, just being a woman, when we walk somewhere, even we're smart, we know we know what we're talking about. Sometimes we just get pushed aside like we don't know, just because someone else don't want to give us the chance. So I guess
Yeah.
she's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that it's in your blood.
I think so. It's in the genes. It's in the gene. And my daughter's now, thank goodness, seems to have inherited that as well. She's 14, and she was years ago saying I would take her to work with me to our social enterprise so she could see that she lives a really privileged life and there's people who are less fortunate, and that if you're privileged and educated, you have to give back. You can't just take
Yes.
all the time. And she came with me to work a couple of times and met a lot of our refugee clients, and they were fascinated by her because she has long blonde hair and blue eyes. And they loved her, and she equally would meet a lot of the people, but a lot of their children as well that had been in refugee camps and things like that we were trying to find housing for and employment and things like that. So she is very aware for a 14-year-old that the world is not an equal place.
Mm-mm.
And she's very aware of, when we moved to the States, there's a lot of inequality there as well. And some of it is very different to the inequality in Australia. And she's determined to make a difference. She says to my husband and I all the time, I either want to be a human rights lawyer or a psychologist because I want to help people, when they're going through a tough time. And I'm like, okay, just
Yeah,
keep going down that path.
I think she's a little you.
We'll just nurture that. We'll just nurture that through those tough teenage years that we're coming up to.
Exactly. But also, I think that with your work, you are making a huge difference. But not only that, a lot of sadness too, because you get to meet people that's in very sad situation. And I don't know how you deal with it. How? Because for me, I probably would be crying every day.
I've had moments where I've had tears. Yeah, I'm an empath. So even when I see things on the news here, I'll burst into tears. There was a story a couple of months ago about, and it's actually just popped up in the media again recently in Australia, a group of men with disability that have been living in the same group home. They're all in their 50s now, and they've wanted to stay together. They're in they must be in their 60s now, but they've lived together for over 30 years. And they want to stay in the same home because if you separate them, it's like almost separating twins or, mother and child. These are people that is their family. And I heard the story and I'm sobbing like a child. My husband's looking at me going, what's happened here? But it's because, when you sit with people for long enough and you really give people your time and you listen to their story, that you realize that not everybody's living a prosperous, healthy life often.
Yes, unfortunately, not all of us have that opportunity. Always, I guess it's appreciate what you have because what you have, someone wish they have it, but they don't. Someone
That's
else
right.
wish that. Yeah, I
That's
agree
right.
with you. So, how is coaching disadvantaged clients different from coaching the regular people?
They've got more barriers typically to employment. So we call them non-vocational barriers and vocational barriers. And so that's kind of self-explanatory, but non-vocational barriers can be things like, they've been long-term unemployed, or here in Australia, we have the term very long-term unemployed. So people that have been unemployed for 12 months or more than 24 months, or even longer. There's people that have been unemployed for 10 years and are experiencing homelessness and things like that, food insecurity, disconnected from their families because of substance abuse, or there's women that I've worked with in the past in different programs, employment programs, that are in emergency housing because them and their children have escaped or left a pretty severe domestic violence situation. There's so many of those barriers that people need to overcome. I don't know if that's the right word, but work through and
Work
heal
through.
before they can even think about moving to overcoming some of the vocational barriers, like going to do a course or, looking at, do I want to go to university or do I want to go to a college, and get upskilled so that I can, follow my dreams and become a teacher or a carpenter or whatever that might look like. So there's just stages to how you can work with human beings. And a lot of
Yes.
our programs that are government funded sometimes overlook, I think, that's that real simplistic part, which is you're dealing with human beings, and every single one of them is an individual. Every single one has their own story, and some of them come with a lot more trauma than others, and they need to overcome those things and address those barriers and traumas before they can move into employment. Yeah.
Wow. Do you ever think of starting a nonprofit? Because you already have one.
Yeah, I have. My husband suggested it a number of times. I work with such beautiful nonprofits here in Australia. I've got a number of national nonprofits that do absolutely beautiful work, and I feel very lucky that they've brought me on board, and I'm now seen as part of their family essentially, or a partner of theirs, and we've designed programs together and been awarded government funding to be able to support particular groups of people, like migrant women here in Sydney, move into employment, and design the programs the way that we know will have a real impact on those people. So I have thought of starting a nonprofit, but it might wait until I move to the States.
I think it would be a great idea because all the work you are doing is just amazing. Why not be able to get funding to support more people, you know?
Yeah. I think I've got that background, though, that I know how hard it is. So maybe that's the reason I've stayed away from the getting into starting a nonprofit, is I know how hard it is, the absolute struggle to get government funding, and how hard it is for them to run off donations and fundraising. And during COVID, a lot of charities and
Sure.
nonprofits really struggled. So never say never.
You never know.
That's it. Say yes and figure it out later.
Exactly. I love that model. And one thing I know that you work a lot with nonprofit organizations, but also do you also work with corporations and then small businesses, medium small businesses?
Yeah, so we have business consulting under our consulting arm as well. And we have the interim executive support as well. So apart from the diversity inclusion and sort of the strategic side of the support that we give to, or that we offer to nonprofits, but also corporate organisations and corporate partners, we do support people that way as well. So we have small business focus. My husband has been a small business owner. He's also had his own consulting firm. I started this business here in Australia and now in the States. So, and we've worked and coached people before that have been unemployed and wanted to start their own business, but just didn't know how to do that.
Mm,
So we do small business coaching as well.
okay. And
Yeah.
how can someone get your services?
My website, so they can jump on the website, which is elevatedconsulting.net, and they can either send some details, brief details, through the form on the website, or they can book a discovery call with me, and we can just talk about, you know, what are your barriers to success, essentially, and then we can figure out what that might look like, and if they would like to engage with us.
Sound good. I like the fact that you can talk to them, try to figure what's going on first before even starting anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can't send somebody a service agreement and say, sign on the dotted line, it's going to cost you thousands of dollars, and the person, you haven't had a conversation yet.
Yeah.
Because the fit is really important as well, especially if it's a coaching client or we're going to be coaching a group of leaders, for instance. That coaching relationship, it's really important. It's like going to your dentist or your doctor. Is some You might shop around and say, "Oh, I didn't really, fit with that dentist, but this dentist has got a really, great bedside manner, and I feel really
Mm-hmm.
comfortable, and the trust is there." So having that conversation first is really important to establish rapport and start, seeing if it's going to be a good fit, a good working relationship.
Exactly. So there's something that you believe in, doing good and do it well. So
Yeah.
can you give me some more detail into that philosophy of yours?
Yeah, so that's really describes, because when people say, "What do you do?" and I guess there's this misconception sometimes that we only work for nonprofits or sort of people in that sort of community services or human services space. And the way that I like to describe it is we help any organisation do good and do well. So whether you're a non-profit and you're doing the doing good, but you're worried about doing well as far as profitability and business sustainability and having the right structures and strategies in place, that's what we mean about you can do good, but you can do well. And then if you flip it around, the corporate partners that we work with, often they're doing well. They're very, profitable. Their
But
bottom lines are healthy, but they're sort of saying we know that our staff want to see where we're reinvesting and where we're making a social or environmental impact. So that's where the doing well, doing good part comes from.
I
It's
love it.
confusing.
Yeah, but I love the philosophy, the way you put it. I'm like, I have to ask her.
Yeah. And we say something similar. We say that we have a commercial mind but a social heart, and that's the same. It's just trying to tell people how we balance. You can make a real great impact in society or on in the environment, but you can also be profitable and be doing well and running a proper business, a
Hmm.
proper company.
Exactly. But you also an advocate for diversity and what step, I guess what I'm trying to ask is what step do you think that organization should take to actually be able to facilitate that into the to the company diversity wise? Because like yourself, you work with people from different part of the world, and like you said, it can be an issue with not knowing exactly where you're going and how they work with the things that they do. How do you belong with them? So that's for the individual side, the employee side. But what do you think the employer can do to make it better for these individuals?
I think well before that before they look to making that commitment. So there's usually a bit of a light bulb moment. Oh, we've got a real commitment. We've decided as a company we've got a commitment to people with disability. It fits with our values. It fits with our mission. And then they say, so what do we do now? And I guess the first question is, well, why? Why do you want to do it? Because it has to be a genuine commitment. It cannot be a ticking the box exercise. Like I said before, you're dealing with human beings. You have to be genuinely committed, because diversity doesn't work without inclusion, right? You can't
Right.
make a commitment to saying, we want to have people with disability. We want to recruit a certain percentage of women in our leadership team, and then you do all of this recruitment without reviewing your recruitment practices, which can
Mm,
often not be great at attracting diverse candidates in the first place. And that experience often isn't great either. Um, but then once that diverse group joins the organisation, then it's how are we including these people? How are we going to make these people feel included and that they belong? And so that we don't have a revolving door of people coming in, having a very poor employee experience and leaving and going to another company.
mm-hmm.
And usually, you would know yourself, the focus on diversity inclusion or diversity in particular, is that diversity in a workplace usually creates much different and better perspectives. People bring different perspectives to the workplace, different life experiences, different skills, and so it's diversity in every sense of the word. And people are usually much more innovative. Staff feel that their company is genuinely committed to something that is doing good,
Good.
and so then overall, it usually equates to people collaborating better, higher performance, higher retention rates. People are happy to come to work because they can see that their company is looking after everybody. Because I like to say everybody is somebody. Um, but there needs to be a genuine commitment from the C-suite at the top. But there also has to be, lots of training and communication about um, if it's people with disability. I would suggest that you put your team through disability awareness training so that they understand what some of the challenges might be for these team members that might be joining the organisation. If you're not a person with a disability, sometimes you don't see things, um, and you don't understand that the language
Yeah.
that you use can be ableist is what people call it. But it can be inappropriate and offensive, and a person with a disability could say, look, I'm not going to stay here. This is going to be a traumatizing experience. I'm going to go to another company.
Mm-hmm.
So, and on the flip side, there's if you're recruiting people from refugee backgrounds or different cultures, do some cultural awareness training that's actually meaningful for your staff, and educate them about what's appropriate. And in Australia, we have a huge focus on our First Nations people, and not as much as we should. And I know our government is working towards that much more now. But I worked in an organisation where there was a huge focus on recruiting and including people from Aboriginal backgrounds and communities. And sitting with those beautiful Aboriginal women, I learnt so much about that culture and just how some of my assumptions that I'd made, even things like, do you call somebody an Aboriginal? Do you call them a First Nations person? And all you need to do is say, what do you guys want? What do you like to be referenced?
Mm-hmm.
Being respectfully
Asking.
curious. Yeah, being respectfully curious and just asking the question and being genuinely wanting to learn and acknowledge and understand somebody else's background. So that's
Yes,
what
I agree
companies
with
need to
that.
do.
I agree. But do you also think that they should, when they're just hiring someone, they should have some sort of training that is, I mean, like from the beginning, not when they start working for the company, but like the first week of hiring, it's like a training that they get that has to do with diversity, about different cultures and how to actually approach one another.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, that whole thing about, I think about diversity and inclusion and the steps that people, companies, and leaders need to take, the same as when you're onboarding a new staff member. So you want every single employee to have a really positive employee experience so that they stay, because those first few weeks and first few days are really crucial. If somebody has a poor experience, that's usually when they're going to start thinking, this isn't the organisation for me. This isn't the company I want to belong to. Um, and it can set, quite negative things in motion, and it can create a negative workplace culture and all sorts of
Mm-hmm.
things. But absolutely, you want to give people all the tools and resources and opportunity for success when it comes to diversity and inclusion. And so, apart from looking at things like, how do we recruit? How do we write our job ads? Is it inclusive language? Are we,
Mm-hmm.
by the way we're writing our job ads, are we excluding some groups in the community that actually could bring amazing skills to this job? Um, it is about what you just said as well, is bringing people together and creating a safe space and having training and saying, we're doing this because of, this is the purpose. We want to be better.
Yeah.
And I think it's absolutely important.
But can you, let's say for example, can you come in when they need to train? They need to train new employees with diversity and things like. Since you already have that background, is that
Yeah.
something that you can come into an organization or and help them to have that structure and train those employees to understand it? Is that something you can do as well?
Yeah, so we usually do the whole end-to-end process. So we'll work with typically the leaders first, because they say, oh, we want to recruit 20 people from refugee backgrounds a year. Okay, why? Why? Tell me why. And there's a lot of me asking why. Well, why do you want to do that? Just so that they understand this is a commitment. These people are going to need different types of support to make their employment meaningful, but also so it's sustainable employment for them. So we usually will do that first part. Then we work with the teams. Then we do the training. We can do the recruitment part as well. So we try and do the whole piece so that it's seamless for everybody. And uh,
But what is? I know you like to ask the why, but usually, what the answer do you get? Why do you feel like they want to do that? Why do you feel like they want to go hiring from a different country when they can actually do it in their own country?
Some give really good answers and they're really passionate, and straight away they've got a genuine commitment. They're like, we want to make a difference. It's not just because we want to put it in our annual report, or because our board told us we need to do it. A lot of them are saying it's because our staff are demanding it. Our staff are saying, where's our diversity inclusion policy?
Mm.
Where's our diversity, equity, access and inclusion and belonging policy? Because belonging has become a big part of that whole diversity, equity, inclusion. an access piece. So staff are, especially after the pandemic, staff are wanting different things apart from just a paycheck.
True.
They want to know that they're doing purposeful, meaningful work. They want to know that if their work isn't particularly purposeful, they're not working in non-for-profit, that if they're working in a large corporate, they're asking questions about, well, you guys are making $300 million a year. Who are you helping? What environmental causes are you supporting? I want to know I'm working for a company that has a cause and a
Right.
purpose. And they're saying that is linked to staff retention. And so I think that's why we're starting to see the needle move a little bit. If there's starting to be some progress, because the large corporates are finding, your Amazons and your Walmarts, and Walmart has been doing it for quite some time now, but that was because their staff were like, well, we need purposeful work. We need to know the company we're working for has a purpose and is helping people, and that the work we do and the profit we make is going somewhere to support someone. It's having a social or environmental impact. So, the pandemic changed everything. People want more meaning in their life. They want more flexibility. They want to work like this a bit more than just in an office.
But let's say that a company doesn't have that within the workspace. Is that something you can come in and implement it for them?
Mm-hmm. The diversity and inclusion?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We do that
From
from scratch. Yeah. And we manage the whole change process. So there's a whole change management process that overlaps with that, because that change journey can be quite lengthy and tricky, and the leaders can get quite frustrated and overworked as well, because if there's staff that don't want to go on that journey, or don't want to go on that journey at the same pace as everybody else and start resisting the change, it can create issues in the workplace, which then negates why you're doing it in the first place.
Right.
Yeah.
Amazing. You're just doing amazing.
So we like to say we can hold their hand throughout it,
Okay. Yeah. So what would be your advice for women out there that's trying to start their own business or even to make it out?
Believe in yourself, ladies. So many women that I've coached in the past, that the key thing with them is their confidence. They have that whole, I don't like to call it imposter syndrome, but that's kind of the name it's been given. They just have, I don't have anything to give and or offer. I'm not good enough. There's all these women that are doing much more amazing things, and I just want to start my own little home business. And my whole thing is, be you all unique. We're all unique. We've all got something brilliant to offer. We've all got strengths that need to be realised, that you can put into creating your own brilliant small business that might turn into something amazingly big. You just don't know. But for me, it's just believe in yourself. You have to. I had to back myself all the way when I started my company. There was no security net. There was no nothing. It was, okay, you've jumped off the cliff. Now you need to learn how to fly on the way down. And so for women, I just say, just believe in yourself, and the power of networking and finding other women that are just like you, either the women in business or, family members or friends, or going to women's networking events. Go and find women that are just like you, and surround yourself with women that are going to hold you up and support you, and, inspire you to follow your dreams. Just do it.
I like that. Just do it. Well, it's
Yeah.
not me that said it this time, it's her. So it's not coming from me this time.
No, that's right. Just do it. Self-belief. If the guys can do it, we can do it.
Absolutely. Well, I don't see any difference between the guys and us. Not much a big difference, really.
No.
Actually, it's kind of like a lot of things we do. It's like when people said that what you've been doing all this year was I was raising 5 kids. Right. Do you know how hard it is to raise 5 kids? It's a full-time job. It's 5 full-time jobs. Yes.
That's right. That's what I say to a lot of women that have never worked. never worked in Australia before or never worked because they've been raising a number of children, and they're saying, I've had this epiphany, Kylie. I want me time. I want to work on me. I've given all these years to my husband and my children, and now I want something for me. But how do I do it? I don't have any skills. And I'm like, oh, honey, you've got skills. You've raised children. Let me pull out all the skills that you've got: organization skills, communication skills. Like, come on.
Leadership skills.
Yeah, that's right. Multitasking. They
Yes.
just need someone to believe in them. Honestly, that's what it is usually. And for them to have a conversation and for you to say, these are your 5 top strengths that I've just observed through a conversation with you. And they go, oh, and then they just need some direction. That's what they need. They just need
Yeah.
self-belief and direction. And once they start to work towards their goals, their confidence usually goes right up, and you can't stop them once they've got their confidence. It's brilliant.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the reasons why, as a woman, when we're starting a business, it's good to get a mentor, a coach, someone that can believe in us and then guide. It's good to have the family support as well, but having that mentor and a coach
Yeah.
that's outside of the home that can just guide you and put you up when you are down, I think it's necessary.
Yeah. We do a empowering women program that's coaching just for women. So it's a safe space and it was designed for women by women, which is great. And it's a safe space for women to come and engage with other women and engage one-on-one with a female coach, qualified coaches and psychotherapists that understand their journey, that have been mothers, that have been career women, that have been career women in executive roles and started their own business, or all different walks of life, all different backgrounds, all different cultures, and they can come and share their experiences and feel supported by that group. But because it's really important. It's really important.
Yes. Yes, it is. Well, I don't know what else to say, Kylie. You are doing an amazing work, and we need more women like yourself. Because I remember when I started Womel, and I said I'm going to support women. A lot of people say you are in a mission impossible. I agree with them. I am in a mission impossible, but I think that one woman at a time, we can make a difference. If we help one woman, that one woman can go help another woman and go help another woman. Eventually, I think that will make a huge difference, which will help our next generation to be better than us, that's what we need. We need them to
Yeah.
be better than us and be able to stand and say, we know our right, and we are, there's no difference between me and you.
Yeah.
And I think we need more of that, and that's what you are doing. So I know you come in here in the state and you work internationally. Just keep doing what you're doing, and please don't change it. And if you ever open that nonprofit organization, let me know.
I will. We've got to stick together, right?
We gotta
We've all
stick
got to
together.
stick
Yes.
together and make it happen. But we can conquer the world. Absolutely. I believe that. And what you're saying about, we've got to remember that when we're lacking confidence and saying, oh, I can't, I don't have skills, there's a little girl listening to us often, which is either our daughter or our nieces, or we want them to look up at us. And, there's this beautiful picture I've seen of a little girl and a mother, and the mother's got her superwoman cape on, and then the little girl's dressed exactly the same. And I'm like, that's what
Ooh,
we want. We want our young girls to know that they can do anything they want to.
absolutely. And thank you
Yeah.
so much for giving me the chance to have this conversation with you. You are an
Thank you.
amazing woman doing amazing work, and I look forward to keep on working with you and be a part of what you do, because we need it more and more than
Yeah.
you think.
Oh, thank you so much. And you too. You're doing amazing. I read up on everything that you've done, and it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. So
Oh, thank you.
the pleasure's all mine. I've started my day feeling very warm and fuzzy.
What a great conversation with another great female founder. Kylie's work is impressive, and she is doing a lot to support everyone around her. Not every day you meet a woman like her, empowering change for the better. Thank you, Kylie, for taking the time to have this conversation with me. Let me know your thoughts about this episode with Kylie. And to learn more about Kylie and Elevated Coaching and Consultant, visit www.elevatedconsultant.net. Thank you for listening to Female Founders Podcast. That's it for this week's episode. Be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast app or connect with us on womel.com so that you don't miss our next episode. See you next time. Bye for now.